A very warm welcome to Law and You here on Independent Television. We're in Benin City, Nigeria. I'm Uyi Agmofwegwe. On the program this week, we want to take a look at the war, as some persons would call it, but others would rather say it is a fight against corruption in Nigeria. We want to also look at the institutions that have been put in place to, as it were, prosecute this war. Of course, the war has been here for a long, long time. However, since 2004 in particular, under the leadership of former President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, we saw agencies like the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, that is the EFCC, and that was closely followed by the ICPC. And today, when you talk about anti-corruption in this country at an institutional level, those are apparently the two organs of government that would cross your mind first. However, questions have been asked about, first, the documents, or if you like, the legal framework that drives this war or that drives these agencies themselves. Of course, we understand that there's the EFCC Act of 2004. That is pivotal, whether you like it or not, to the conversation about anti-graft war in this country. But of recent, we're seeing some changes being made in the modus operandi of the EFCC, especially at that level of creating systems and frameworks for the organization or for the agency to be more effective at what they do. And one of those changes, very critical changes, is the fact that we're now told that there's an arrangement such that the EFCC would not only, as expected, report to the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation, who, by the way, doubles as the Honorable Minister of Justice in Nigeria, but it would, in addition, all right, hand over all recovered assets to the AGF. Okay, some persons have faulted that because let's say, just like the Central Bank of Nigeria, just like the National Bureau of Statistics, there is a substantial level of autonomy, for want of better words, that the EFCC, as an agency of government, should enjoy. But what does it really change if the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission is required, whether by law or by circumstance, all right, or by way of expediency, to turn in or turn over all assets to the office of the AGF? The ultimate thing, some persons would argue very vehemently, is for Nigerians to get the most out of it. An example that readily comes to mind is the Abacha loot, which has come in tranches and, of course, series. We're told, by the way, as it stands right now, we are still not done with that recovery. But again, that's probably a story for another day. For today, I want to look at the issue, if you like, the symbiotic relationship or otherwise that does exist between the Economic Financial Crimes Commission and other anti-graft agencies on the one hand, and then the Office of the Attorney General on the other. After this break, you'll meet my guest and we'll put the conversation on the road full throttle. I'm joined by Barrister Matthias Obayuwana. Apparently, he's a legal practitioner here to help us understand many of these issues as intertwined and complex as they may be. Matthias, it's always a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you, Oye, and good afternoon, viewers.
Great. I want us to begin from, I mean, you and I have talked about anti-corruption time and again, but it will appear every other time there is a twist to the fight. The conversation becomes ever more dynamic. But I want us to look at the issue of not just fighting corruption, but let's look at it from the standpoint of recovery itself. Because the everyday Nigerian is not as interested in the fight that you're carrying out or the war you're prosecuting as they are in how much of successes have we recorded. All of those recoveries you have done, can we have, as it were, a breakdown? How much have we recovered? What are the assets? For example, we're now hearing that several things, items recovered from former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Alison Madwike, are now being put up for sale by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, including some things that are quote-unquote very personal, for instance. And then you're wondering, okay, so how much are we going to realize in the end? Who is going to be talking to Nigerians about these recoveries? Let's talk about transparency along that line.
Yes. The whole essence of the fight against corruption is to wipe off arbitrariness and shady deals. Now, we are talking about waging a war against maybe public officers or individuals who may have abused the privilege of their office to take what belongs to the collective as if their personal property. And then you go after them to recover those. You apply to court for an order to freeze the account. And then after a while, you also ask for an order to forfeit the items that have been frozen to the federal government. So for me, those assets become property of the federal government and by extension, the collective property of every Nigerian. If that is the case, there's a provision under the Sheriff and Services Act that deals with the management of properties that is being taken in through the legal process in terms of auctioning those properties. It's the sheriff that takes charge of that. Then they have to comply with the necessary laws, that make provision for the auctioning of such properties so that it will be done in an open market. People can freely come to bid for it. And the old Nigerians can follow through and see how it runs. Whatever money that is recovered from it is sent back to the Federation account. So that at the end of the day, whatever proceeds there is, if you're going to distribute to the state, then everybody will know how the pattern of distribution comes from. But from the way things are running, the EFCC applies to the court under the EFCC Act and the relevant provision of Administration of Criminal Justice Law and Act to freeze monies in the account, to confiscate properties that belong to these persons with a process of crime. And at the end of the day, maybe you secure a conviction, or they could all come to substantiate how they came across those properties, and then the properties now forfeited to the federal government of Nigeria. You, the same agency of government that has come to tell the court to forfeit that property to the federal government of Nigeria, you will now also be the one to be in charge of management or auctioning of the same property. For me, there is an issue there.
That's a misnomer, right?
It's a misnomer. They should have allowed the court to take charge of the auctioning, because the proceed now, even though it's in custody of the EFCC who are recovered it, ordinarily they also have brought them to the court premises. If the EFCC or the FRS, whatever it is, they are confiscating any items, usually they are exhibited before the court. You have to bring those items to the court premises. So you bring them there, and then they be provided to the federal government. What is to be done with those property is to auction them.
But can we blame all of this misnomer on the EFCC Act?
You see, there may have been no sufficient provisions, in the Act to provide for how such things could be done. But ordinarily, we are speaking, ordinarily from the general principle of law that we understand that where you bring any exhibit before the court, at the end of that proceedings, that exhibit has to be auctioned in order to recover the debt. Because these are debts you are trying to recover. Take it or leave it. Even though they are process of crime, they are indebted to Nigeria as a country. You stole from this country, we are taking it back, what belongs to us. And so those things ordinarily will be auctioned. And there are procedures for auctioning. So can the EFCC follow that procedure for auctioning? Can they also, not have their fingers burnt in the process of auctioning them? You may be tempted to hide some, because they are the same organ that received them. So if in a proper accounting environment, you should submit those records to the court, in which it has left you, and then when they are auctioning it, we all can follow. So you are the one who said you have certain items you brought to court, so you can decide to take out some and auction those that you want to auction. Nobody can follow through. Nobody can tell you, what you actually brought and what you are taking away. So if you have brought the matter to the court of law, the process that already in the covers of the court, it should allow the court system to run through and let it be auctioned and the money put in proper account that it belongs to. For example, now the court finds an individual who has committed a criminal offense, even for fraudulent offense under the EFCC Act. If the court finds you to say, okay, you can pay XYZ amount or go to jail for whatever term, the money they are paying goes to the federal account. It does not go to EFCC. They will not say, okay, go and pay that fine to the EFCC. No. When you pay that money, you show your receipt, and then they can either let you go if it is an option of fine to let go, or if it is for both, you are still going to start a prison term, you still pay that fine. The money goes straight. So why would you keep that property with you, and at the end of the day, you will be the one to be auctioning it? let alone now saying, okay, now let us even transfer it to the AGF. So from one end to the other, if you forgot, if you haven't forgotten in no distant past, there have been a rift between the EFCC former boss and the AGF.
Yes.
On this issue.
But some persons will say it was not personal, that it was work-related.
Whatever it was, but there were allegations and counter-allegations that some of the proceeds of this, of the crime that was recovered, were again looted by this individual. Well, this one say you took some, the other one say you took other one. So it cannot be between the same agencies. It's this because the same executive arm of government that is dealing with this stuff.
Yes.
And you are taking the matter to the court. You should allow the judicial arm, another arm, an independent arm, to look at these issues and ensure that they auction it in a transparent manner so that people will see through. Every Nigerian can come and bid for it. You cannot sell it to yourself because there are procedures for auctioning.
But some persons will argue, maybe laymen like us, for example, will argue and say, look, I mean, take a cue from the customs. The customs would confiscate items, including automobile, for example, food items, and then also auction at their discretion. We have not had a problem with that the whole time.
There are always problems with that. When was the last time you heard of an auctioning by the customs?
By the customs.
How many times would they have advertised the auctioning or come to the television, to come and publish it?
Or the print media.
Before you know it, they say the item that will recover, they are auctioning. They will arrange among themselves and sell it to themselves. And decide, how much. It may not be for the best price. But if you always take it to an independent under the judiciary, and let the sheriffs take charge of the auction of this item, you declare this item that you have seized. You present it to the court. So that it cannot be an agency that will be taking the laws into your hands. For the custom, for example, now you become a judge in your own cause. You are the one who has arrested the people that brought the item. You say they are contraband. You are the one that decided that it's contraband. You are the one that confiscated the item. You are the one that will still sell it at whatever price and decide to do with the money whatever you will. So it become a government unto themselves. In a proper democracy, you are having checks and balances. I don't see the custom, in a transparent environment, be they want to seize those items and auction it by themselves and keep the money wherever they keep the money to. They should move it to the independent arm of government, which is the judiciary. Let the sheriff arm of it, take care of the auctioning in a manner that will be transparent, that everybody will see it. And whatever policy comes from it, will go to the federal post. That is what I think should happen. That is why you see in this rift now, even the Senate, they are not happy about what is going on. Okay, they argue that the EFCC they have the wherewithal to manage the proceeds of the crime that were recovered. Why are you passing it on to the AGF? All of that. So before you move it from one end to the other, certain other items can no longer be found. They cannot give account for it. So now that is why it has come for them to make a bill, which they call the Proceeds of Crime Act.
Yes.
That will now spell out how the proceeds will be taken care of. If you are going to auction it, the procedure for auctioning the European organ of government that will auction it, everything will be stated in the Proceeds of Crimes Act, which is underway in the Senate. So I'm going to hurry over that and get it done. So in a transparent system, so that at the end of the day, we will not be dealing with a situation of looting the loot. Now we'll find ourselves. The Abacha loot now, they have been recovered. Can you tell me now what they have done with the Abacha loot? All the money that have come in, what have you done with it? All the properties you have confiscated and seized here and there, what have you done with them? What was the process of auctioning those properties? Who bought them? And for how much? What was the bid? When did you open the bid? So all of these things, they are all kind of covered up. So there's no transparency in the system. If you are dealing with fighting corruption, we'll be seen to be fighting it holistically and not in the manner that it is going. Whether it is the EFCC that is going to auction them, whether it is the agent that will auction them, I fought it on both ends. That both of them cannot do the auctioning. Send to the judiciary, let the sheriffs take charge of it. A
lot of persons will argue, just before we take a break now, that look, what you're seeing between the EFCC and the AGF is pretty much the typical Nigerian case where you find people getting more personal rather than thinking institutionally. Isn't that what's in play here?
Yes, for me, because the AGF, tried to show that he's the boss. Yes,
but isn't that what the law says? The law makes him the boss over these agencies.
Well, it makes him the boss in terms of prosecution.
Prosecution.
In terms of prosecution, because they can undertake to prosecute. They can take over any prosecution by any agency of government. They can enter nolle, prosecute. So, okay, we will not prosecute this person for whatever reason, if it's the best interest of the country and all of that. He has all this power to exercise. But now prosecution, if they have gone through prosecution, they have secured conviction or whatever it is, his job ends there. I don't see anywhere in the Constitution that gives the AGF power to begin to lord it over this agency to speak, other than prosecutorial power that he has. The managerial powers of the various agency now subsumed under the AGF. I don't see that in the Constitution. So it's kind of a power play If I am your boss in terms of prosecution, I should know what went through in the prosecution, how many conviction was secured. Okay, what did you now recover from it? So then, in which case, okay, fine. Since I was the one that overseeing all of these things, let me know. Come and report to me what was recovered and the rest of it. So at the end, they themselves will not be the one to be auctioning or to be doing whatever they want to do with the asset. Right. For me, send that access to the judiciary because it was through the judicial system to a matter of self-help. If you go after people you suspect to have committed financial crime on your own, you seize the item on your own, you sell those items by yourself without resorting to the court system. It is self-help. So if you are brought the matter before the court and through the court you're able to recover these items, allow the judicial arm do the auctioning. Declare those assets, let the sheriff attend to that, declare the asset, publish it, and let people come and bid for it in a transparent way, so that at the end of the day, whatever sales that is being made, the money will go to the coffers of the federal government. And again, for the federal government, they must also find a way of sending it to the various states, so that at the end of the day, it does not get missing, in transit. Okay, great. I think that's what some persons have come to call a case of the loot being relooted, which is again of a serious concern to Nigerians. We're taking a quick break, everyone. When we return, a little more to talk about here on the program. Stay with us. So I was going to ask you this about integrity and credibility of these organs of government, the agencies responsible for prosecuting the war against corruption. Of course, the EFCC being, holding the cardinal spot amongst all of them. The controversies associated with the process of, as it were, recovery of proceeds of crime, for example, has cast very substantial shadow of doubts on the work that the EFCC and similar agencies do. How much does that affect the fight against corruption? Well, the point has been emphasized here is that there should be transparency. And if you recover assets, you should make it public. You should, from time to time, because each time you ask them, they tell you they are still investigating, they are not concluding investigation. Meanwhile, that is creating an impression on the mind of the Nigerian. Yes, that you are still investigating. So, what did you recover from this individual? What is the value? The last time when they were going through a hearing before the Senate, they could not tell the exact amount that they had recovered. And they got the invite early enough exactly. To get those figures. Exactly. They could not tell the exact amount. They would say, some matters are still going on in court. We are not done with the court process. We do not know how much has been recovered, but we are still working on it. That is where money will get missing in transit. You cannot tell. So if you are a prosecutorial agency or your agency of government has been charged with the possibility of going after looters, for our treasury and recovering it, every inch of the way you must make it public. So amount of money was recovered from XYZ. This is where the money is. So when you are done with it in the court, you have secured a conviction. We all now know how much was recovered, and then that money that was recovered. What are you going to do with the money? Are you going to send it back to the federal government? Where is the money right away? So you should find a way of doing it. So for me, it is not a case of because I think they are giving too much powers. Yes. You recover the loans, manage it by yourself, and decide what to give to the government. No. If you recover the loan, you have done your own part. Send whatever you have recovered, since you went through the judicial system to do the recovery. Send that proceed to the judicial arm. Let the judicial arm be the one to make the order that so amount of money that has been recovered to be sent to federal account, so that by that directive that money will send. Because more often than not, you bring the order to court, you apply for the order, the court frees the account, and then you secure a conviction, and the court can just be yours. Okay, the money is forfeited to the federal government. That's the order that's often made by the court, and then you take it back. So what happens from there? So have you sent that money to the federal account? What is the procedure that you have followed in sending that money to the federal government? So who is the federal government? So are you the federal government, you say EFCC, are you the federal government by itself? So the proceed, where has it not left you to the appropriate organ it's supposed to have gone to? So the money will still stay with them, the asset will still stay with them. Oh, we are trying to auction it, we are following a procedure. There are some bureaucracy we need to follow. In the maze of all of that, you cannot trace certain funds. So again, it puts a question mark on them. If you are the one chasing those who have stolen, why are you allowing Nigerians to begin to cast a doubt on your own integrity, to know whether or not all that you have recovered from those who stole the items we actually put in the proper coffers of government that ought to be. Why would you not create a situation whereby there will not be a blame trading? Oh, you bought properties in Dubai, you bought properties somewhere, abroad. How much do you earn as an agency of government? What is your salary? Can you also justify whatever property you have bought abroad in the course of your work in the EFCC? So would you also not be one of those who should be the agency should come after to also arrest you and investigate you to find out how you got those money that you used to buy?
By way of leading by example.
Yeah, leading by example. So you must be seen to be clean. First of all, they must declare their assets. Just like they have also done the law they also made against bankers. Declare your assets so that it should not be seen that you are helping politicians or whatever to cover their grounds to steal money and launder money. So you too in the agency declare your assets. How much do you have in your account? How much properties do you have before you start? In fact, every year you should also declare your asset, so that we can follow to and those asset declaration may be investigated by the appropriate agencies of government to actually find out how much you have now and what you have acquired from time to time. So at the end of the day, you don't end up feeding fat on the loot that have been recovered.
Let's talk about something else. The process of prosecution. Sometimes you hear about things like a plea bargain. Yes. A lot of persons have said, look, whether you like it or not, plea bargain speeds up prosecution, and then, of course, it saves government a lot of money, all right, in terms of what they spend prosecuting these cases and so on and so forth. Others have said, no, it's a bad example. For instance, somebody steals 7 billion, and then you ask them to bring 3 billion, for instance, and ultimately the person parts with 4 billion. So somebody else sees it tomorrow, it probably becomes an incentive to want to pay for the public purse and so on and so forth. Is plea bargain a blessing for us at this point in time? I mean, given where we are as a country. Yeah,
the plea bargaining is good. Where I fought it is this idea of asking a convict, someone because they are trying to get him to accept that he's guilty.
And you have evidence against this person.
Yes, you have evidence against the person. You may look at the time it will take you to prosecute and all of that, or you may also have difficulties yourself in securing witnesses to come and testify, because without those witnesses, there's nothing the court can do.
Your case goes nowhere.
So since you now see that you have some lapses, you find a way of romancing them to agree to say, okay, fine, I actually did this. Yes, I did. So for me, the plea bargaining aspect of it should be talking about the length of time you could spend, in custody, and not how much you will forfeit. Okay, you took 100 million. Okay, give us 60 million, and tell the other 40. If that's the essence of plea bargaining, that is very wrong. It will be an incentive to criminals or adjudged persons, suspended persons who have committed offenses, to begin to steal. You steal large. It's an adage in Benin that you want to eat a frog, you should eat a fat one, and so that don't go and mess yourself up. So for them, if you want to actually steal, then steal big. Then you don't go for plea bargaining, then you're not let you off, and you have other persons or the crime to fall back on. No. If you have the evidence that a man stole 100 million, and you know where the 100 million is, please take the entire 100 million. This man, for taking this 100 million, could go to the jail maybe for 15 years. Okay, because he has agreed that he did it, he didn't make us suffer for
He has made the investigation easier.
Exactly, easier. Okay, fine. Instead of giving you 15 years, we'll give you 5 years. Go serve that 5 years, and we'll also watch you so it's a good behavior. If you behave well, you may not finish the entire 5 years. You may go on parole. If you don't behave well, you finish the entire 5 years. But for not taking all through this process, it's just like a hush puppy. You expect America to do a plea bargain for you, okay, to keep some of the proceeds of the crime. It will not happen. The plea bargaining may be the length of time that you will spend in custody.
Right.
That's the essence of it. And not for you to say, okay, a man stole 100 million, you want to do plea bargaining for you to retain certain proceeds of the crime, and the remaining one go to the federal government of Nigeria. If that's the essence of plea bargaining, it is very wrong. So that aspect of plea bargaining, if it has been operational, they should find a way of reworking it against public policy to allow a convict to keep the proceeds of the crime in the name of plea bargaining. That is wrong.
Just in 1 minute, we've talked about the proceeds of crime bill right now in front of the Senate.
Yes.
Where do you see that going? Because there is always so much of drama with processes like this in our country.
Yes, I expect the Senate to look at that bill very well, and I expect them to look for an independent arm of government, like I have suggested, and the judicial arm, to allow the sheriff to take charge of this auctioning in a transparent manner, so that whatever parties that are being forfeited to the federal government of Nigeria, it should be auctioned.
Right.
If the government want to convert it to use as a public home for the homeless, or for public institution to use, a particular way, they can. If they want to sell it, then it must be made known by Gazette. They will have to auction those items, you know, and put the money where it belongs to. So they should look through the bill properly and ensure that there's transparency. For me, take it away from the two agencies, whether the AGF or the EFCC, give it to an independent arm.
Okay.
You have done your prosecution, you have convicted the person, you have recovered the asset, let them declare and submit it to an independent arm, and let the transparent process take place to auction those items, and the money go to where it's supposed to have gone to.
Thank you, Barrister Matthias Obayona, for coming to share with us on the program. We appreciate it. That's what we are living it this week on Law and You. I'm Uyi Agmofwegbe. Thank you for watching. Our coverage continues.